Well, you,
Open? Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the City of Lewes and the Lewes Board of Public Works joint meeting Monday, July 28th, 2025 at 1 p.m. There are additional copies of the agenda in case you need a hard copy. They're up on the desk. And I want to just remind all my colleagues here, or Blue is having me remind you, for all of us, make sure you speak into the phone, get closer to the phone, to the microphone, so that people online can hear you. And when we get to public comment, we'll be asking you to come to either one of these and speak into the microphone. Today's agenda is lengthy. Both BPW and the city are going to look at some different formats in the future where we may have two public comment periods. BPW has started to do this in the cadence of their meetings, one at the beginning and one at the end. But because we publish an agenda, we do have to follow this order. So I apologize. You can't put public comment. You have to put public comment the way you advertise the agenda. And the reason for that is there could be somebody who's thinking about wanting to listen in or speak, and they realize there are all of these agenda items. So that's why our rules of order is followed. But in the future, we will look at two, because I can imagine, as I look around the room, some of you may be here for an issue that is not number one. So bear with us on this as well. So in terms of call to order, do you have any opening comments? And then we can say
well,
this
the only
here.
thing I'll say is that the BPW did change our agenda, as Amy stated. We're taking public comments at the beginning for people who want to talk about items that are not on the agenda and don't want to sit through the whole agenda. But also, if people want to make comments about items on the agenda. And then at the end of the meeting, we're taking public comments only on items on the agenda. So, and we felt that was the best way, because we had been doing where we're taking questions after each agenda item, and that was creating too much disruption in the meeting cycle. So with that.
So in terms of our attendance, we have our deputy city manager, city solicitor, all of our council, Councilman Trina Brown Hicks, Councilman Ritzard, Councilman Elder, myself as mayor, and the deputy mayor wanted to be here. He has been trying to get back from Wyoming for about 2 days. Flights are getting bumped every time. So I don't think he even lands in Philadelphia until about 4 o'clock today, but he extends his apology. He will watch this session. He had really planned to actually get back into town Saturday night or Sunday. So again, apologies that he is not here. The rest of council will be here for the full meeting.
And on our side, we have Robin Davis, our general manager, Sharon Sexton, our assistant general manager, Mike Hoffman, our legal authority. And then it's Bob Heffernan, Richard Nichols, Presley, and Barbara and myself. So I will announce also that Press is going to have to leave at 2:30. So, you know, on that, with that.
Why don't we just start with the first agenda item, which is update and discussion on the June power outages. And Tom, I think you want to give us an update of what happened and what's being done.
First thing I want to say is, I should have said in the opening remarks, I apologize for any misstatements I made during our BPW meeting relative to the city hack. The servers were not hacked. It was an email account, and we were not using the video out of the utmost precautions, but the audio is now up online. So
Thank you for that, because I think there was some confusion about that.
all right, so the June outage. I'm just gonna go through the well, what I consider the high level, and maybe go down into a little minutia, but the first outage was the T1 transformer had gone to lockout position, which means that the transformer was out of service, and that contains circuits 1 and 2. That happened about 9 o'clock, Robin, if I remember. Yeah. And the crews were, the crews were out there. I was out there with the crews, and we got it back online. Unfortunately, 4 or 5 hours later, the same exact thing occurred. We switched the circuits off of 1 and 2 to limit them being on the same relay that was causing the problem. However, what we found out later was that the T1 transformer was still the lockout relay for that transformer, even though there was no load on it, was still in the lockout, the relay loop. So once again, circuit 1 and circuit 2, and this was only 2 circuits out of the 4 that we have were out. We then combined circuits 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 onto circuit 3 and circuit 4 breakers. And I do want to make the point here that none of this was covered by or caused by heat. It was purely coincidental because the transformer loadings and everything were within normal range. So it just was coincidental that it happened to be a heat event and a relay failure. So the next morning, Potomac, which is our testing contractor, came out and they ran tests on the relays and other equipment to find the issue, and eventually found that the relay, the T1 relay lockout, was reading 4,300 amps. Normal or typical high range is in the 60 to 100 amps. And ideally, the neutral should be at 0. But there's a lot of reasons: unbalanced loads, fluorescent equipment, electronic equipment, that can cause the neutral to run slightly high. But by no means ever 4,300 amps. So the relay was jumpered out, and the rest of the transformers and circuits were separated, and that's how we've been running. We have 3 new relays on order to replace the T1, transformer 1, and T2 relays because they're getting old, and then 1 for spare. In addition, we're having Potomac do with us a full review of the control circuitry at the substation, because no one still understands why the T1 relay was tripping the T2 transformer. So that's ongoing, and we hope to have that completed within a month. So, and I think that's about it. So I'll take questions.
I think the call center was
Oh,
the other
I'm sorry, yes.
concern that
Yeah,
people had. I mean, the technical is good to hear, but when we all called in, that wasn't a very good experience.
Why don't we go through the technical stuff first?
Okay.
And I got a note here about the control.
Great.
control
Is there any questions from council? Tim, I think you may have some follow-up on the technical aspects. Are you good with the description now?
I followed the description. I understand the description. My question would be more about the maintenance schedule of this piece of infrastructure or pieces of infrastructure. And will that be addressed going forward?
That is a completely valid question. And yes, that will be part of the review and analysis of the event and the control system. But, those relays, we should be replacing those relays on a regular basis. I will say, though, this is the first occurrence of it, but that doesn't mean that the equipment isn't getting older. So yes, it will be addressed.
Thank you.
And I think this goes to the city as well. that we all have now capital improvement plans, the city and the NBPW, but we want to have asset management plans, which address exactly as you're saying, Councilman Ritzer. So we can anticipate having to buy new equipment, so we budget for it day one. So very much like your own home, you know how long your roof is going to last, minus a big storm. And so we need to look at our capitalization plan as well. I assume you do too, where we can look ahead and say, 3 years from now, we can imagine these things need to happen. So asset management is just as important as budget management. So on the city's side, we started it, and that's something our finance committee is going to continue with. But that was something I think we could share, because then we both see when there are big costs. Now, maintenance things can happen, but that way we can look at the life of equipment, and your business is yours, but we'd want that too. So we would know that there's good maintenance on both sides.
Any questions from the board side? All right. Moving on then.
To the customer
call
service
center.
line, the call center.
So, Darren, if you'll take the lead on this one.
So we actually use a local service, short answer. They are very small. So as you can imagine, as the night goes on, they don't have as many representatives. They also are in the midst of doing a changeover to their system that I recently learned out about after all this. Which we've never had this issue with them dropping the calls before in this manner. So we did propose maybe that they do more like a loop, or to keep people on hold rather than, and they said they would get back to us last week about Friday. They told me, nope, it's just not possible. So we do have a demo set up with a new company moving forward. So hopefully in the next few weeks, we should have a new after service company to handle those calls.
That's terrific, because I think the frustration,
Yeah.
any of us felt as citizens when we got the number to call and our calls were dropped, there was no answer. That just added to the frustration and
I
confusion.
agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
exactly. So I commend you for questioning whether they could do it, and if not, going out with a more robust service.
Yeah, I don't know, it's as much as the calls were dropped, it was the goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't. Any questions from council about call center?
The only question I have is when a similar event occurs, and it's just a matter of when, it's not if. My question is, the contractor, this answering service, who within the BPW is responsible for communicating to them what the outgoing message should be when they take a call, so that the person, your customers who are calling in
Yep.
are given reliable, factual information?
Yep. So when they receive those calls, they actually dispatch our on-call employees. So once they go out, those employees call back to the customer service line and say, hey, this is what's going on. And we usually have a dialogue already predetermined prior to, so they know what to say going out. I will also say that after the first one happened and we did get those notifications that people were being dropped, we added a message to our line the second time it happened to say, hey, we know there's a high incoming volume, so we know there's a situation. That did kind of give people the opportunity to say, okay, they know, and hang up. So they didn't receive as many calls the second time it
Mhm.
happened, so.
Okay,
That's good.
thank you.
Yep.
And for the city manager, is there anything in that call center information that you would like to request as Sharon is taking this on with the new companies?
So definitely communication with the BPW, going back and forth. If the city were to have issues, we would certainly reach out to BPW. But we're also here to support the BPW and provide any outreach and lasting notifications that we can do on it.
Lorraine, do we use a similar service?
No.
We don't. Okay.
Okay, should we move on to agenda 2?
Okay. So it's updating and discussion on the city BPW resiliency vision, goals and projects.
So let me just start from the city's part. As many of you know, we passed a resiliency fund and funded it in our budget process for FY '26. Deputy Mayor Saliba, and also Lewes Planning Commissioner Chair Rich Innes have been tasked to put together recommendations on the scope of our resiliency committee, but it's going to be environment and resiliency because they do go hand in hand. And then there'll be subcommittees under those. We're trying to look at some ways to consolidate where possible the amount of meetings, not just that we all attend, but where you all attend. And so the Lewes Planning Commission Environmental Subcommittee has been thanked for their service. That was something that I chaired originally when I was on Planning Commission. And that will now, those activities or focus will go under the resiliency. So they're in the process right now of getting that set up. I can anticipate that will be sometime in September or October. That commission will report directly to council. So it doesn't sit under another commission because it doesn't just relate to planning or parks. What's important about how that's going to be engineered in terms of membership is expertise. So we welcome volunteers from the community. If you are interested, you can reach out directly, put in a note on our website or reach out to the deputy mayor or LPC chair. But we'll be looking for engineers, scientists. We're going to be looking for folks who have expertise, who have time to look at nature-based solutions as well as engineering solutions, and also environment. That's tree canopy, all those other kinds of things. So it's going to be a very robust commission. It may not meet once a month. They're working out the cadence of that. Subcommittees might meet. But basically what I wanted to share with the public and BPW is we will want BPW to have a representative on that, as Barbara and Bob had in the past with the Planning Commission, the Environmental Subcommittee, because it's hand in hand related to resiliency. But I think what's exciting about it is we are, I believe it's South Bethany has a resiliency fund, but we're in the pioneering stages to have it. And with all of what's going on in our federal government, we are not replacing FEMA, and I can be quoted on that. We don't have those kinds of resources, but we're going to be putting funds into protecting and building better now and sharing information out with the broader public. So our goals will be really looking at ways to educate, inform, undertake certain projects as well, like Cedar Street. That's a good example of the floodgates there. And 4th Street Preserve is another example of open space used as a nature-based solution. And then we're looking forward to seeing your goals, because obviously you have a lot of infrastructure that should we or when we are flooded could be in jeopardy and risk.
And I think the only thing I would add is that both the city and BPW have met with University of Delaware,
Yes.
and last Friday, I think it was. And University of Delaware, we've been chosen as one of the communities that is going to be, they're going to do a resiliency study on stormwater and drainage. And it's about a year and a half program. So we had our kickoff was about 2.5 hours. I think yours was an hour and a half or so.
Right.
So we are using the expertise of University of Delaware to help guide us in the resiliency. Some of the stuff we can do without them, but the bigger picture of how to protect Lewes over the next 25, 50 years is something we're going to need, outside help with.
They're also, just to put a plug for UD, they're going to be hosting the first kickoff. It's a workshop on September 5th at the library from 9 to noon. It's really important that we get a good amount of the public out there, because they're going to be using some survey techniques, and they will need at least 50 people to participate to make it a valid survey. And that's going to be primarily focused on nature-based solutions. So please pass the word out in your neighborhoods and to others. And I'm sure the Gazette's here, so that could be, I'm sure that they'll be reaching out. Pardon me? The date is Friday, September 5th, 9 to noon at the library.
Yeah, thank you very much for adding that.
Okay, let's go.
Alright.
Let's go on to number 3, update and discussion on the city and BPW Burton subdivision projects. Why don't we let you start
All right.
first at BPW?
So, the BPW understands that there has been generalized concerns about discolored water in the Burton subdivision. Based on these generalized concerns, the BPW has installed an automatic flusher for the water lines in the subdivision back in early 2024. And it's been flushing intermittently during non-freezing conditions. A permanent flusher that will flush year-round will be installed in the next month or so. So we will be able to start flushing in the winter time. And just for anyone who doesn't know, the reason why we can't flush during the winter is the drain is on one side of the road and the flusher's on the other side. And we don't want to create icing conditions on the road. So in addition to the testing requirements required by the regulatory agency, the BPW did an additional water sample test on May 9th, and the testing revealed no water quality concerns. We understand that some in the Burton subdivision had questioned the BPW's additional testing samples due to the proximity of time to when we were doing fire main flushing. Going forward, we will ensure that these are separate, and the next scheduled testing is this week. Do we have any update on that, Robin?
Yeah, as Tom said, the next scheduled testing date that we have for the water samples is Thursday.
It's Thursday.
We're getting the sample bottles today. They ordered them today. So Thursday, we should go ahead and have the samples done. So if you see some of our staff out there doing water sampling, that's what it'd be.
And how do you share the results, or what's the time frame, and how do you share the results of those?
It normally takes several weeks to get the results back. Could be 3 weeks. At that point, we can put them on our website and maybe share them with the task force that meets monthly.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea to share
Okay.
with task force.
Could you take a minute and describe how the water sampling is accomplished?
What they're doing is what they did back when they did it in May of 24. The sampling is done through the water meter. They go out, they take the water meter out, they take the test as required by how the testing cycle goes through, run the water for a little while, and then you take the sample, put the water meter back in and send it away. Kind of basic, but that's about how it's done.
So at each service lateral, in other words, the meter is actually removed and tested at that point? Is that what I
The
understand?
sample's taken from the meter pit, yes, and there's going to be 6 of them, just like the original one was.
And would these be 6 different ones or the
No,
same 6?
It was determined that we were going to keep the same sampling sites. We could change them if we would like, but yeah, right now they, as give us a baseline for what happened before to what we have now. We wanted to do the samples originally to try to get an idea of if there was any difference in the testing of the water. Because one of the concerns was that we were did the testing after a flushing cycle.
And is the sampling, can you say what streets or where is the scope? What's the geographic scope of the sampling?
The streets, I think we're gonna do Johnson, Painter, DuPont, 4th Street. I don't think we're gonna do, and Burton, I don't think we're gonna do Park,
Okay.
because Park is on the, of replacement.
And Robin, when was the last time we did flushing on the fire mains out there?
April, I think it was either the 15th, 16th or 16th, 17th, something like that.
No,
And
we're far enough away from any.
correct, and we'll be doing the additional biannually in October.
Robin, why would you omit Park?
Because I think Park was on the list of to go ahead and do. And I don't know that, I don't have the list in front of me, Councilman, so we might be doing a Park Avenue address, I'm not sure.
Well, my concern would be that even though the pipes are scheduled for replacement, if something unusual would happen in that water system, which there are already complaints about, it should be monitored and documented in
Yeah.
case there needs to be any kind of an emergency. For example, water distributed to the houses or, what have you.
We are testing on Park. I just.
You are, okay,
Yeah.
great.
Great.
Perfect.
Thank
And I do
you.
have a question as well. You mentioned about the automatic flushing. I'm interpreting that is supposed to help relieve the discoloration in the water, but if it doesn't, what does that tell you? What does that mean?
It's just a way of keeping the water circulated. So it does help alleviate any problem of standing water in a spot. So I don't know exactly what the scheduling they have it on right now, but I know it does periodically run several times during the day.
It does, I know
Yeah.
it does
Yeah.
for sure on DuPont,
Yeah.
but I just
Would,
know that there's still
Yeah.
discoloration, so I was just wondering if, what
And,
that means.
and if I can add that's the next topic, is as I've emphasized in past meetings, it's very important for customers to call in specific events to the BPW so our staff can investigate it. You know, I know you bring it up at the bi-weekly or monthly meetings, but that's not in real time. And for us to go out and do testing to ascertain where the problems are, we would prefer that you, or in addition, that you would call in the problems, because we actually have, and this isn't meant as a hit, but we have almost no call-ins to the BPW for actual events. And
So Tom, let's just pause on that, or I'd like to pause and just ask a more clarification. So obviously, that subdivision, that community has come often to these meetings to raise issues. And some of them are having continuous issues. So I'm just pausing. Do you want them to call you? Because some might call you every day. And I don't think that's what we're asking. Yeah. No, wait. No. Okay, folks, there is decorum. Our group is, and I'm trying to ask those questions you might want to hear the answers to. So are you asking for folks to do it every time they see something, or are you asking for when they see a change? Like, let's just be clear what we're asking the public to
I
do.
think that's what it is, that if you're normally not having, or the discoloration gets worse,
Okay,
that's what we're looking for.
okay.
Because we're looking for where it's breaking free from and more detail. So, Robin, Sharon, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you're correct in what you just said, Tom, about the changes.
Yeah,
I have another question related, and it just has to do with infrastructure. We've all worked really hard to try and get some projects online here for our infrastructure. On our side, it's been a lot of roads, and we're working with BPW, of course, to see that we get these projects in place. My question is, and it's kind of a complicated one, when you go back to the initial study that was done, the June 2000 number 210129 report that was given, there were a lot of studies of the pipes done there, and I think there were some areas that were pointed out as definitely areas of need. Now, I know that we need to be flexible and things need to change around, but my question relates to just the whole notion of how old our system is in the city of Lewes. We all understand that this is an old city that's grown organically, and so we're going to have these problems. There's just absolutely no doubt about it. And we want to work with the BPW to help get these things resolved for our citizens. But my question is this. The reading that I have done indicates that the lifespan of iron pipe is 50 to 70 years. And if you look at the infrastructure that we have here, that would indicate that the majority of our water pipe, our mains, is kind of worn out. So in some of the reading I've done, they indicate that this coupon testing, by the way, they call it destructive coupon testing, where they take a chunk out of the pipe. They're saying that after a certain age, it's not worth doing. You just need to put a plan in to replace the pipe. And so I'm looking at this and I'm wondering, I didn't think that 210129 was a completely thorough study, it didn't seem to me, but I could be wrong. So my question is, because one of my goals today was to see if we couldn't get the rest of the Burton subdivision done, redone, the whole thing, because of the age of the pipe in that area. Yet there is aged pipe all over the city. But then again, the information that I'm reading is that coupon testing is kind of a waste of time. And that it's very questionable when you have pipe this old, and it does more damage to the system by trying to do the testing than not. So you should just plan on replacing. But we don't really have a plan per se that I can see out there that says this area will be done this year, like a 20-year plan or a 10-year plan. So what I would like to see is something like that. And I would like to see the city of Lewes also commit to doing the backup so they can get that done. I think we need to be good partners together on this.
So let's break up your question into
Big,
two.
long question.
Well, it's a very important one, but it has components. So let's do the coupon first and have BPW answer that. And then let's talk about the strategy of what streets are done where. Okay, that's a fair characterization of
That's
your
fair.
two questions? Okay.
Yeah, so, I would take exception, we have a 10-year capital plan.
Let's do the couponing first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
So I know where you got that from the couponing. However, couponing is no different than doing a tie-in to a pipe. So when we provide a new housing service, we have to cut a hole in the pipe
Mhm.
Right.
and then put a strap over it and tie in the new one. And that is no more destructive than taking a coupon. We're taking the coupons because we're trying to prioritize. As you said, Joe, there are lots of other 100-year or
Yeah.
old pipes
Mhm.
in the city. And so we're trying to prioritize. So Robin, your comments on the impact of couponing on structural?
Well, anytime the less joints you have in a pipe, the better off you are. But there are times you have to go ahead, if you got to repairs, you got to do some sort of coupling in there. So it's hard, when you talk about stuff underground, it's hard to just make an assessment there's no way of looking at it without going down there and cutting a section out of the pipe. So in cases of trying to assess what the condition of the pipe is, you have to do that. And I understand what you're saying, that you said if it's some of the pipe that are 70 years old, you just say it's automatically bad.
Yes.
You just automatically assume that it's bad. Well, with having a lot of pipe that of that age, you still need to prioritize which is the worst and which one's the better. So to
Sure.
do that is to physically take a section of the pipe out, in my opinion.
Yeah, and all iron pipe is not the same.
Okay.
We have cast iron, we have ductile iron,
Okay.
we have cement coated ductile iron.
Okay.
And then PVC
Okay.
or HDPE or whatever. And so we have perfectly good cement coated ductile iron pipe
Okay.
in the system. And we don't necessarily have good records going back 40, 50 years.
Mhm.
Now we do, because now everything gets put into GIS. But historically, we may know it's an iron pipe down there, but we don't know what type.
Okay.
So, oh, I'm sorry. And, the other topic,
Well, that's a good explanation, and I think it was helpful for me because I didn't realize that we had 3 different types of iron pipe. My point was, what I was reading was that when these pipes get that old, it's probably better to replace. But I understand your position too, Robin, that we can't do it all at once. So you gave me a figure what it would cost to do it all, and it's absolutely pretty amazing.
I don't know, the figure we were talking about on the phone the other day was just a number that I
Yeah.
reached up. I mean,
Yeah.
again, ideally, if we could had millions and millions of dollars, we could go ahead and replace them all and
actually
set.
hundreds of millions.
Yes.
I have a question, please.
About that.
One-
about the
one
time
second.
before-
I'm
before we
sorry.
Get on the
One-
plans.
Before you do that, Robin, would you also just comment on the amount of iron pipe versus PVC pipe?
I don't, I mean, it's way more. I mean, again, now with the replacements, we are replacing with HDPE pipe or PVC. So it's still a big difference in the amount that we have for compared to the other.
Okay. Councilman Ritzer.
All right, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. When you speak about the couponing and you speak about the different varieties and materials used for the pipes, are you speaking only about the distribution side of your system, or are you also sampling the individual service laterals that run from the distribution pipe to the residence, to the structure?
We own to the curb stop and the individuals own to the, from the curb stop to the house.
Correct,
And
but
inside the house.
right, but historically, and my home is, I offer up as an example, a 40-year-old home. My curb stop is within 3 feet of the front wall of my house. So the lateral is in fact, the length of my lateral is yours, with the exception
We'll
of the
correct
last
that.
3 feet. And if
That
that was if my experience, if my homeownership experience is similar and replicated throughout the city, what I'm suggesting or asking is it not possible that laterals could be actually the responsibility of the BPW?
Yeah, and there's a couple of issues with that is that, in cases, there are laterals like yours that are further in. Mine happens to not be at the curb either, so,
Speak into your mic.
oh, I'm sorry.
Can't hear you. Just pull it
All
closer.
right. I won't look at you.
Yeah.
So,
I don't-
my lateral is also not at the curb stop, or the curb stop isn't at the street. But once you start going in, you can't really sample a lateral. When you open up the street, you can see what the pipe is, where it connects to the mains. But going in and trying to unearth the laterals, many people have established landscaping. And that would mean that if that pipe is under landscaping, we would, be disturbing landscaping. So it's kind of a balancing act.
Right,
But
but
I'm open to any suggestions.
right, but I think and I can appreciate the point you're making with respect to landscaping and the efforts that people make to beautify their properties. But when we're talking about the health of our residents, I kind of think that most people would reason that it's more important to actually get the samples of that material, regardless of where it's located, so that we understand and they understand what the risk is.
So can I ask for both attorneys, because we are on private property in this conversation, and I just want the attorneys to say what happens there. I mean, I hear the need, the public health need, but I also respect that private property is private property.
And thank you, Mayor. That's the point that I wanted to make. So for simplicity sake, in terms of offering an explanation, the BPW says the BPW owns to the curb or is responsible up to the curb stop, and then it's from there. But at the end of the day, the BPW system is in BPW easements. If there isn't an easement for the BPW lines, then they're private lines. Now, that's again, because for the BPW to go onto the property and take samples or repair or do any of that, it would need permission, and that's where the BPW gets that permission to an easement. So the point is that where there are these examples where the curb stop is different and where there's questions, then those should be brought to the attention of the BPW. We can look into it to confirm where the BPW system ends and where the private portion begins, because I'm sure there are individual unique circumstances. But at the end of the day, if the BPW doesn't have an easement, it's not the BPW system.
So I had one other question about the coupon testing. You gave a very good explanation about the iron pipe. One of the things that I came across in my readings was that if there is galvanized iron pipe, that it has to be treated differently, especially if there is upstream lead. That when you have upstream lead, the lead washes down through and it actually adheres to the decaying zinc and iron surface. And the EPA has made a regulation that then it must be treated as though it is lead pipe. Is that true?
So Robin, to the best of my knowledge, we have no zinc distribution pipe
Okay.
or galvanized.
No galvanized.
No galvanized mains, so.
Okay,
Now,
that's good.
but what you bring up now is that houses built in the 1940s and 50s
Right.
may have galvanized pipe inside them.
Right.
And
So,
And
so
then if you have upstream lead. it can
speak into
adhere.
your mic. So when BPW, and we're on the topic of Burton subdivision, so let's be specific to Burton subdivision. So when we have in the plans that we're digging up those streets and you're putting in pipe, then will you, I'm going to say, correct any historical issue? In other words, if we have just what Councilman Richards describing in his, is it the intent in that project to say, oh, citizen X, we do need an easement because we want to be responsible until you're responsible. So sometimes it's the curb. For mine, it's in the middle of the sidewalk. I mean, it's different everywhere. Historically, that's reflective. But how do we correct this going forward when we're expending and investing the money to get clean pipe and clean water to our citizens?
Maybe I'll start by answering. I don't know if I have a full answer. What we do historically on any of these projects is when we get the plans and the plans indicate that there needs to be work done on private property, we check for an easement. If there isn't an easement, then we approach the property owner for easement. So that's typically how those situations are corrected. The first step is where do the plans take the construction, and then we build from there.
Okay, so in the case of Burton, once those design plans are done and then you go through this easement process, then in the future, if BPW is checking something and they actually have to disrupt somebody's landscaping, do you, because it's in the easement, are you responsible for the repair?
So we typically address that in our easements.
Okay.
We typically, the BPW standard easement prohibits encroachments into the easement area. If you are to having, there's been situations where there's existing landscaping and whatnot. The BPW has allowed that with an understanding that if it has to be removed, the owner is responsible to replace them. That is the standard policy.
Okay,
But if
we discover a service that's subpar, that we don't have the responsibility to replace it from the meter pit, from the where our curbing, from the curb outside, that's what I'm trying to say. It's still their responsibility to replace that on their own from the house to the curb stop.
If it is not a part of the BPW system, then it's not the BPW's maintenance responsibility.
But we don't typically go after easements to replace them. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Correct. If it's a private line on a private system, the BPW wouldn't undertake that unless it were part of the BPW.
I just wanted that to be clear.
yeah, I'm just, what I'm just relating it to is this agenda item, which is when you are replacing a main and laterals, it's that point in time that if we have a situation, as Councilman Richard said in his property, but if you had that in Burton, then would you have a conversation with each of those citizens? Oddly, the lateral goes in your front yard or whatever it is. I'm just wanting to correct the when we're spending all this money and getting clean water, let's get the infrastructure right as well. So that just as the solicitor said, you're only responsible up to a point, but that point is going to be a little more standardized.
Yeah, and again, that's why I said I'll start the answer. At the end of the day, there is the plans are based on the BPW system. So the engineered plans are going to be for the BPW system. And it's important to make sure that that work is done either in a right-of-way or easement for the BPW system. If it's not a part of the BPW system, then it's not going to be on the plans. Now, if we're looking, if the engineer plans come back and they show the system extends in the private property, we don't have an easement, well, then of course that's where it would have to be remedied. But that is not necessarily going to say, oh, the BPW system's where it's supposed to be, but we've got this curb stop anomaly.
Gotcha.
That would be a different question.
Okay, so what I would say, and I guess this falls on GMB, when you are in the robust design stage for the Burton subdivision, for the one that right now is being discussed on Park and Fourth, not everybody can read blueprints. And so I would encourage a public workshop where those citizens can actually look at their property line and understand. I mean, just having it on a website to me is not enough. I think it really has to be, this is going to be a very active and interactive design stage. And so I think that that would be something that would give better education so people can understand. And you could draw on the line in a color, this part is your pipe. So I think that going forward,
I
let's
think that's the
do.
request, and I will just state for the record, my curb stop and meter were almost adjacent to the house. And I had a 30-foot tall holly that was encroaching on the curb stop and, on the meter pit and the line. I just had to have the holly taken down, which was a big crime against humanity. And it was on my cost to replace the lateral out to where the new curb stop was. So.
So let's move on.
I have one follow-up question. I want to go back to what was described earlier as the flushing, the automatic flushing program. I know that program was also used over on Rodney. And my question is that community, is Rodney still being flushed?
No, it's not no longer, since the infrastructure has been completed and it's looped around through it. Yep.
Yep, that loop is completed.
Yep, the
right?
loop is complete.
And okay, then that's going to beget another question. And in the Burton subdivision, do we not have a loop system?
It's a loop system. Yes, it is. Mhm. Yep.
And yet we still have a discoloration in the water and is that correct?
Yeah,
My-
there's a single loop that goes through the school property and the pipe ends up on Sussex Drive. The others are tied into the park, and the Burton go into Johnson, which end up turning into DuPont. So it is totally looped around. It's just how the flow of the water runs.
Yeah, it's about, fluid dynamics, because even though it's all looped, it doesn't mean that there's necessarily flow through every line. If people on Johnson aren't using water and people on Park are, then the water's going through Park. It's very complex because it depends upon the pressure drops, which also depends upon interior pipe surface conditions.
So is there anything citizens can do when they know about the flushing schedule that gives a better, I'm not using this technically correct, but a better flushing, a better true to life flushing? In other words, should they be running water during that time? Like what's, to get the best accurate results, what do citizens do?
It's recommended you don't, during the flushing cycle, don't run your water, because a lot of times if it's stirred up from the flushing,
Right.
it's going to run in there. While you're actively flushing, the preference would be not to use your water.
Not to use water at all?
Yeah, not to use.
Okay, and does your guidance, so does your guidance give them directions about, we're going to be flushing at this time, try to reduce your water use, and then when you're finished flushing, do they have an increase in the iron? And so then is there a post-flushing protocol for
There-
citizens?
There is a potential of increased discoloration.
Okay,
So at that point, that's when you normally put in the notifications that you may need to run your water for like 15 minutes and then to clear up.
And
Okay.
think
I
we
would,
need to-
I would like to add at this point that discoloration is mostly iron. So we call it discoloration, but it's primarily iron, I believe.
All right,
And-
Barbara?
Yes, I'm guessing that we're talking about two different types of flushing here.
Yeah, thank you. That was what I was
And
gonna get.
there's the once a month flushing where we all have problems if we're in the wrong place and we're running our washing machines. You know, you just don't do that on Wednesdays. What is it, the second Wednesday of the month? You don't do it. And if you get the brown in your water, you run your cold water for a long time, don't run your hot water, you know, that sort of thing. But I think that Amy may have been asking about the flushing that occurs at the end of,
The automatic flushing.
yes, the automatic
Yes, I
flushing.
was.
that's
Thank you,
on-
Barbara. Thank you for that.
Okay.
clarification. Yes, I was.
So during the automatic flushing, you know, the public doesn't know what that schedule is, and there's no,
And I believe unless I'm wrong, there's no additional discoloration, I think, when that thing flushes, because it comes on so often.
right,
But, wouldn't that water which is being flushed represent what is actually flowing through the pipes? That's the whole purpose of having it
it's what sediment,
flush.
it's what sedimented onto the bottom of the pipes.
Okay, so it's circulating it.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
I do have one additional
Sure.
question. You mentioned about the different types of pipe. And if I recall, maybe about a year ago, there was a survey. I'm not sure who the survey came from, but I thought it was BBW that said if you wanted to find out what type of pipe you had, you could do that. What was the results of that? Because I think I filled out that survey and I never.
Shari?
So that is part of the EPA's lead and copper rule. When 2024, we had to submit our initial inventory, which we did. And we now have 3 years to determine the rest of the unknown in our system. And with this particular program, we actually have to find out the utility side and the customer side. So that was the reason for sending out that survey, hopeful that the customers would say, hey, we just replaced our pipes. We know what it is. We did not get an abundance of response. So we're on that path. We're still trying to get that inventory collected. You should have also received another letter saying, did you receive one saying it was unknown what you had?
I believe so.
Yeah. So you'll probably get that every year until we completely determine our inventory. And like I said, 2027 is, and we're trying to shoot before that, but 2027 is the goal.
So if
Yeah.
someone missed that survey, would they be able to, it's still in?
Yep, we have a whole page on our website. Anybody can go to it.
Yeah, so I would encourage everyone to save us costs, which saves your rates, and to expedite the process to respond to the surveys, so we can check off which houses we have to go out and actually verify.
So my one question, I'm not sure was answered. It was in that larger question, but hopefully we can get to it at some point. And that is, can we do the remainder of the Burton subdivision?
Okay, that's the next part of it. So are we fine on the
Okay.
flushing one? Do you have any other questions?
I do have questions, but I'll take them up at another occasion.
Feel free to ask them.
I am gonna, okay, thank you, Mayor. I am going to ask for greater clarity on the statement that Sharon just made with respect to the survey work that was done. If the survey is asking the homeowner to identify or declare what material their surface lateral,
On the customer side.
that's correct.
Mhm.
That's right. And the customer side means inside the structure, or could it be on the house side of the meter pit?
It could be either or. So the majority that we did receive, most people that tell me they have a basement and they can see that pipe coming in. So that's the easiest way. Now, most people are not gonna crawl under a crawl space and tell me so. But we're asking them, if you see it, let us know. That way we can just check you off. Now, it may still be unknown. So for you, it may be known on our side what it is, but we didn't know the customer side. So we still had to list it as known. If we don't know both sides, it is considered an unknown.
Well, to go with that question, didn't they put all the water meters in the Burton subdivision? New meter pits and new meters? So what
The
do we know
electronic
what
ones.
was connected to the other side? I thought that was done 2, 3 years ago.
Not that I'm aware of.
You can-
Okay, so,
We-
let-
yeah, just a second.
go ahead.
So we still do have some meters that are inside the house. We're trying to eliminate those.
So-
Another,
Go
whoops.
go ahead. No, Barbara, go ahead.
Another point, those of us who have crawl spaces and have had the crawl space, sealed,
Mhm,
encapsulated, you can't really tell what your pipes are.
mhm.
And so I think that may be a source of a lot of the unknowns.
Yep. And
Yeah.
so we still have quite a few out there that we don't know. So the plan is to actually go out and do these inspections. And when we do that, we will probably be going out with the vac truck, looking at the meter so we can see both sides, our side and the customer side.
So going back to the question on the survey. So I also remember receiving the survey and I didn't know what I had.
Mhm.
So I was in the unknown. And so the next time a plumber came to my house, I said, by the way, can you check my pipe? And he said, you're fine. But I didn't know I then had the responsibility to let you know what I now know. And I'll bet I'm not alone in that. So I think perhaps there is that need for follow-up because maybe we can get a percentage of this puzzle figured out from folks who were concerned but didn't
Yep.
know they had to report in. to
And as
you.
part of the program, we have to send that letter out. So if you did not respond and we
Yep.
haven't determined it yet, you're going to get another letter.
Good, that'd be good to have.
Sharon, can somebody go and pick it up at the BPW office?
There's not really anything to pick up.
The survey.
It's not a manual, it's online, or they can just call me. If you just call me and say, hey, I had a plumber out, I'm gonna write it down, write your number down and put it in the system.
Okay. Let's go on to then the second issue that was part of your question, which is the big issue about setting priorities for the entire subdivision. That, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let me start with this because when there's a priority list, we all know it doesn't matter whether you're working, I know I worked for years on Superfund National Priority List. The priorities change when you look at different things happen. However, then you wonder, well, could there be, we have to look at the citywide as an enterprise. So let's say there are 3 neighborhoods that have a more serious environmental public health issue. Well, then when does Burton get done? Because you could be lower and lower. And that seems like perhaps what's being done when none of us were sitting here and maybe none of you were in the audience. So I think the challenge we face is getting this subdivision finished. Now, the part the city could do is we set our CIP plan this year, a multi-year plan, and we did it based on pavement condition index. We went to GMB and said, we don't want to choose one neighborhood over another. We want it to be engineering science-based. And they gave us a formula to use, and that's what our priorities are. So we have a list of priorities. You have a list of priorities. What we could certainly do is a joint meeting. I don't mean this. I mean a working roll up our sleeves meeting where we say, oh, these 2 streets are important to deal with pavement, but they're not having any underground water issues, water quality. So why don't we lower them? Again, I'm not mentioning any street names, but you can imagine what I'm saying is we could reprioritize because ours was not based on public health. Ours was based on above ground pavement condition. So we can do that. So we can sit to you and then we can say, we need Burton subdivision done. So we're gonna ask you to not work on these whatever X number of streets so we can get this one in the queue. Okay, and that will probably aggravate another neighborhood. I understand that, but public health is critical. Okay, it's critical. And so we can change our priorities so that this can happen.
That brings to mind another question, and that is, how will we know if the BPW has the funds to be able to do that? Just because we can doesn't mean that they'll be able to.
Well, I'll let Tom answer on the funds, but every year I see no reason why we would not be applying for the SRF for my life tenure as mayor of Lewes. It's a fund that exists for all the kinds of things we're talking about, and one should apply every single year for that. So that's one tool. Now there are other grants out there for different contaminants, but that's kind of the general one. So we would turn to you all and say, okay, every year, what are the priorities? Public comments have to wait till the end. I'm so sorry, and I know that's frustrating, but please keep your thought, okay? All right.
So a lot to digest. First of all, in the SRF funds, we go after SRF funds on a regular basis. However, what all SRF money is not equal. You know, you can get bumped up the SRF list, or your application can get bumped up if it's a public health issue. If it's just replacing pipes for the sake of they're old, it's not, which is why the sampling and the coupons are important to help back up the SRF applications. So,
I agree.
That's-
Absolutely. That's a priority that all offices of drinking water across the nation use. Everything's even, and then you tell them the worst story. Okay, absolutely.
and so, that's how we got the additional funds for the Burton subdivision project last time. You know, we got an amendment to our existing SRF, which allowed us to do more. The next point.
Well, the next point is, why not a joint meeting, working meeting with GMB, where we look at your strategic plan, our CIP, and we see what we can reallocate from the city's side to get this subdivision taken care of.
And I don't think we did that last year, but that was actually how the original list was developed.
Okay.
We put together our 10-year list based upon sewer, water, electric, whatever. And then the city put together its list and we tried to meld them together.
Would we be able to modify this list at our next meeting?
Well, my recommendation is we work before the next meeting, and then at the next meeting, because there's a cycle with SRF, you gotta get into the queue. So by October, we should have had that joint work, I'm gonna call it a working session. It can be in front of the public, that's fine, but it's not this. It's not a report out. It's roll up your sleeves, and GMB would be sitting at the table with us, and we'd say, what about this street? And then you'd tell us the pavement condition, and we'd say, what about this? And we'd work it around so that we can, the word guarantee is too strong a word, but we can meet the commitment of this subdivision.
And that would be October 8th. Would that next meeting be?
It's the quarterly meeting, October the 28th, right?
Towards the end.
What goes along with that, though, is also, and now this is not a public health issue, but it's the design of the street and the tree canopy. So the city's tree commissioner also wants to be part of that working session, because presumably you're going to have to take down some of the trees on Fourth, and that's going to be alarming because there are some beautiful trees there. But in the design stage, maybe we could come out with bump outs and other things that are more hospitable to trees. We squish trees into this, what do they call it? The devils, it's a terrible name, but now I'm starting to believe it. You know, yeah, in the verge. And so we could do some traffic calming features, because Fourth gets a little busy, and we could do bump outs, which would be more hospitable to trees. But it's at the design stage, all of those topics need to come in, because afterwards, they're too costly. So that's what I'd commit on behalf of all of us, that we would like to do a working session with all of you and GMB actively at the table.
I think we want to take one last review, but our capital plan is pretty much up to date.
Well, up to date doesn't mean the Burton subdivision. I mean, I know they're on your plan, and they're on your plan in 27, 28.
27, 28?
We're talking about coordination.
We're talking about coordination
Between two
between the two, so that in this next SRF application,
Nice.
we can put the Burton subdivision in, and then, you know, the government takes its time, the federal and state government takes all
May
the time.
May I ask a question, please? I think it's wonderful that the city, the BPW, pursues grant money for funding these large capital projects. What concerns me is that the availability of grant money is in fact possibly holding up projects from moving forward. And so my question about this particular issue as it relates to safe water is if we all pay water rates, we pay sewer rates. If you're not building a war chest to be able to draw upon to offset these capital expenses, which are really, well, they're capital, but they're really more or less maintenance in the form of replacement, then is the problem with the rate structure? I don't understand why so much of your decision-making is being based upon SRF funds. For me, this is very similar to the city's dependency on transfer taxes for our annual budget. You know, it's nice that it's out there, it's nice to draw upon, but it's a pretty slippery slope to develop actionable plans.
Well, I'm gonna let, because we don't have Kim here, I'm gonna let Sharon talk to that in a second. But
Is your treasurer here?
no, that's what I said, Kimberly is not here. What's that?
Richard's
Richard's
treasurer,
a-
Kim is the staff finance.
We do set our rates based upon, well, the impact fees based upon, growth of the system, and the rates are to cover, and the readiness to serve is to cover the infrastructure and the commodity cost. So we do, but we're also mindful of, keeping rates reasonable. Because if we, once again, I'm gonna throw a number out there and I don't have any validity for it, but to replace all of the pipes in the system is probably hundreds of millions of dollars.
I would say it's probably in the range, yeah.
Yeah, so, to jack up, let me rephrase that, to increase the rates to cover $100 million expenditure, and we still couldn't do it all at a time, in a short time. We have to be concerned about traffic flow and the such. So that is all part of our capital project expenditures. So I don't know, Sharon, if you want to add anything or correct
Kim
me.
is definitely the better person to talk about this. But the capital budget is actually taking effect. The last time we had a rate study done, and at that time, I think we had 42 million. So they used that to help base the rates
42 million
at that time.
in reserves?
No, that is the projects that we had in the
Okay,
capital
that's the
budget.
backlog.
Yeah.
So,
And it is now more.
But to Tim's point, our reserves are,
I don't know off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
yeah, I don't have the spreadsheets with me.
Okay.
To remember from memory, the list of capital projects is about $48 million. The funded part is about 18.
Use the microphone.
The identified projects currently is about $48 million. That does not include replacing all the pipes, and it doesn't include a bunch of other stuff. Tom's number of 100 is probably right.
Bob, is that just on the water side? That's one of
No.
the things
No, that's just
for the whole
stuff.
BPW.
Water.
So,
No, the $100 million is just the water side.
okay, well, that,
100, 200, I mean, you're talking big money.
well, I was always curious.
Okay, but let me
About-
finish my whole sentence. So funded, identified is about 18, and that's everything, water, stormwater, electricity, all that. So there's $30 million there. Tom's number is right. It's more than 100. So you're very much in a priorities game.
So,
And, we have used the revolving funds
Right.
and loans to accomplish many things, like Donovan Smith and, the pipe underneath the canal last year and, those kinds of things. So it's a key part of what we can apply for now.
And not to throw a water balloon on this, but this is all dependent upon the funding that's going to be coming down in the future. And none of us have any control over that.
No,
So-
we don't have control over it, though there is, thank goodness, some continuity in this White House, as there has been for decades, that drinking water is still a high priority. And so because drinking water is a high priority, the SRF grant for water and wastewater is kind of the golden grant that communities go after. So Tim, what I would say is you go after it every year. I would share the view of our partners at BPW. You go after it every year and you're hopeful that you get all or part, and you're going to get most of it as a low interest loan with a 20+ year payback. It's about the best environmental money that's out there. Then where there are gaps, you look into your own reserves. But you're always going to look for low cost grant money over operating funds. So what I think we've got to do at this working meeting is make the commitment that we got to get this Burton subdivision, the whole of it, done. And this goes back to Tom's comment about getting public record. That's part of the grant application. It's the scientific protocols, it's the data protocols, it's the public interest, it's the city support. All of that is the story. And I've, in previous lives, have written a lot of these grants. It's the story that ups you. So the city's saying, should we say that the Burton subdivision is one of our highest priorities? The Office of Drinking Water will hear that because they'll know that both bodies are agreeing. The Fed and the state, they don't want that we're divided. So the joint effort will really, sorry expression, carry the water, but it will in the grant process. Okay, so that's what I think we should commit to. And that means we're going to have to, we don't have endless funds either. And so we have a 10-year plan for the street. And so maybe that's a 15-year plan now, if this one becomes a priority. But I think we have to look at what are our priorities, public health, and also, public health and public safety. So where the Burton subdivision is in competition with other parts is if we have streets that are dangerous, sidewalks that are dangerous, that's public safety. But public health is higher, and then public safety sitting as its sister, very, very close. So that's to me what I think we should do. I think we roll up our sleeves, we have GMB there, public's invited to listen in, and we work out a joint plan for the joint projects. DPW has their own strategy, and they should, that's their business. But it's in the joint efforts that we have to have shared vision and shared commitment. All right.
Just the last couple of things, and you can move on to the next. So we're going to continue to monitor discolored water. We're going to take the sample this week, samples this week, and we're going to continue to prioritize our water line replacement program based upon objective data for the entire BPW territory. And as we covered before, if you're experiencing discolored water, and we encourage you to run the water for 5 to 10 minutes. If it's still not clear and it's a change from prior, please call the BPW so we can build up the data, which, as Amy has pointed out very rightly, helps support our grant applications.
And so, Sharon, whoever is in this, glad you're getting a robust call center. They're going to need to document the time of day that, that data can't just be 22 people call. It's going to have an audit trail behind it so we can use it in the grant application.
Yep.
And that call center's got to be available for these kinds of calls about discoloration, not just outages.
Correct.
Yeah, they're always,
Yeah.
they're always available, right?
That's a call center for everything: electric, water, sewer.
May I make a suggestion? It was said earlier that this is a daily constant situation in the development. And that's why they don't call it. Because they don't want to bother anyone, but it's a constant situation. Is there any way that you could come up with a standardized checklist to give all the folks in your area that's uniform, that they can check every day that they have cloudiness or discoloration in their water and submit it to the BPW at the end of the month? Would that be something that would be helpful in applying for these joint funds to show that there's a need?
I don't think supplying it on a monthly basis because it
Yeah.
doesn't give us the timeliness
Yeah.
of being able to go out and
Okay.
Yeah.
inspect.
And I think the state could say it's manipulated. It's better that you call in and you just got the offer to call in. So when it changes, so I hear what you're trying to say because that sounds more efficient.
Yeah.
But the Office of Drinking Water isn't going to care about efficiency. They're going to care about customer demand. And then there could be something that could actually, BPW needs to respond to. Okay, so that's why you don't want to have it a delay.
Yeah.
But-
I'm not,
It's a
I'm
good
gonna ask
idea.
one last question about this subject, and that's a promise. At this time, it's the last question I'm gonna ask, and that is, if a customer calls in and reports, what does that trigger within the BPW organization? That do you send someone to the field to verify, or do you just simply tabulate?
I'm gonna let Robin and
What is the
Sharon,
trigger?
I'm gonna let Robin and Sharon answer that.
Well, it's gonna trigger that we can track it. So if it's the same house always having the same issues, or if three people side by side are having these issues, but the people across the street never call, we're thinking that it's isolated. And if that's the case, we may go out there and take a look. And with this case, if it's happening every day, we probably will not respond every day. But in other areas, we have one guy he'll call, but it happens maybe once every other month, one time. But if he calls at that moment, we know we need to go out there and we could take a look at the water meter and look and see if it's there, or it might be something in his pipes in his house. But with this one, I don't think it's gonna be us going out there every day. However, like I said, if we get a group in just one isolated area, we might say, okay, maybe something's happening in this specific area and we might want to go out there and take a look.
Very well said.
Thank you.
So we've been discussing 3 and 4 together,
Yeah.
which makes sense. It's the funding mechanism for what we're doing in 3. I think we also, if Robin and Lorraine, some of the public may not know that you have a routine meeting. If you could just go, both of you comment on that we are having a water task force meeting.
Yes, we do have monthly meetings with the Burton Subdivision Water Task Force Group. It does include city, myself and Janet, as well as the BPW and GMB. And so we are tracking and looking for ways to speed up the completion, at least of the 4th Street and Park Avenue to Johnson project.
Would you do me a favor? Would you define the Burton subdivision? I was asked when I went back, what exactly is the Burton subdivision? Some of the folks here don't. They're here for another reason other than Burton.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you
City
wanna-
manager.
No, go ahead.
Are you?
So we consider the Burton subdivision to be Park Avenue, Johnson, DuPont, Painter, and then Burton.
Right.
With the
Okay.
extension onto 4th.
Yes.
Yes, on to 4th. Okay.
And that's our same definition.
It's apparently it's one of the oldest developments in the city.
It's my understanding, the age of that pipe, Robin.
That's right.
Okay.
Does anyone know? I'm going back on my word. I have one more question.
I know it. You know, and you had a whole
Uh,
audience that was there. We can't take questions now. I'm so sorry.
Right. All right. Real quickly, when the city went about doing the redevelopment of 2nd Street, were the water pipes, the sewer pipes replaced on that street?
Press.
That's even before my time. I believe they were, but I couldn't swear to it.
Yeah, it was before my time also, but I'm pretty sure that was the case. The whole street was ripped up and
Things were put
the
underground.
electric was put underground and the water and sewer.
So I would assume that everything was replacing at that point.
We can verify that.
Okay, that would be helpful.
All right. So
Okay.
this was a critical part of our agenda, but I do want to keep going.
Andrew's nodding in the affirmative
not-
that they
okay.
were.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. The city engineer is not public, so if you have a statement you need to make, you're fine. You're actually, you should be sitting at this table. Actually, in the future, next time, sit up here, Ben and
Yeah,
Andrew.
so we have
Sit in the public.
Andrew and Ben from GMB here.
Let's go back on the state revolving fund, which is item 4 on the agenda, and that is not just to the Burton subdivision. I haven't been mayor while you've all set this up. I was on council, but I would like to better understand the timing and the process. So in addition to the Burton subdivision, because when you're applying for big grant funding, we want to make sure it's in concert. It's your priorities technically, and it's also our priorities for the public. So what is the process that the city and BPW have used in the past to decide and discuss what the different options are?
Well, I think overall, what we've been doing recently in the past years or so is we've been getting together. These quarterly meetings do help, with discussing, our projects and the city projects and trying to come up with a solution to make sure one of us is not doing something over the other. I think that's worked well. I think in the past years, even before my time, it was kind of here's our plan, here's your plan, and we just kind of, I don't say winged it, but that was about it. But now I think we've kind of worked together, and now these meetings have really helped out a lot. So we can combine and say, look, this is our priority. This is the BPW priority. How can these work together? Somebody might have to shuffle an item lower or move it up higher on the list. So
Okay,
I think overall, I think that's really helped out. So we're not looking at these things independently.
And I would add to that is in the last year, we've been working more cooperatively on things like the Burton subdivision. We added an extra $1 million to the SRF loan as an addendum to help for the city to pave the streets,
mhm.
because you didn't have the finances to be able to do that. And, anywhere we can do that to piggyback, because we're the only ones who can apply for SRF funding.
Right. Okay, so what we're committing to do is a working meeting with GMB before our next quarterly meeting, where we're really looking at the Burton subdivision. And then when is your application due for SRF?
Normally, the SRF applications are due in February.
In February,
You
okay.
got to get the paperwork together beforehand, but normally February is the submission date.
Okay, so it could be in that working group, we could do 2 of those things, or we have to have another special session where we're looking at what parties you have in ours so that they mesh. Okay. All right, given time, and we want to leave a lot of time for the public, let's move on because I think some of these others are a little bit shorter. Number 5 is update and discussion on dark sky friendly lighting, which is an effort joint, and it's led by Councilman Ritzert, and the citizen lead is Mary Linda Matty. So Councilman Ritzert, any update? And this has just been beginning, so even if your update is there's no update, that's okay. We just want to know that it's moving.
He's gonna shine some light. Yeah, very good, Joe. I will take 45 seconds or less if you want to set the clock. Yes, I have met with Mary Linda Matty several times, and we have begun to sketch out what we think is just the beginning formation of what the study will encompass. We have identified some streets in the city that we have actually gone out into the field and surveyed at nighttime to see if in fact they would be candidates for the pilot program. This study is heavily reliant upon a pilot program where the goal would be that we would actually test the installation test by installing samples of dark sky friendly light fixtures. And this is going to require us to, we've identified this early on in the discussion, that we will need to capture the current data points with respect to what the current light level is on streets in areas. And then also during the summer season with leaves on trees, and then capture it again in the winter time, so that we have that kind of data points.
And you are gonna relying or working with BPW's?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. It's just been too premature in our discussions to actually take their time, their bandwidth in these discussions at this point in time. And yes, we will be doing that.
Okay, that sounds good. And then for the public to know, at the city's September workshop, we are going to be looking at each of these small projects, the fountain, the dark sky lighting. I mean, not to say they're small, but we're going to get an update on all of the projects, Blockhouse Pond, all the different ones, mobility parking that we've initiated. Did you have anything else on your side on dark sky lighting? No?
No,
Okay.
I just note that this is an endeavor that's going on across the country, and there are several cities that have programs in place, and especially out west. But Pittsburgh has got a very good program underway right now.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we're not alone on this. There's lots of expertise out there that we can piggyback off of.
Right. Okay, let's move on to number 6. And Tom, this is you, an update on the wastewater treatment
So
plan.
don't have a lot of update right now. We're still continuing to talk with the county to develop the baseline agreement. Once we get that finalized with the county, or not finalized, once we get a draft from with the county, we will be scheduling a public workshop. I know I had promised it in the middle of July, but you know, we're 95% done, we're 99% done, and the last 1% is taking equal amount of time. So it's, you know, typical of negotiations. I see a light at the end of the tunnel, and we will be making more announcements about this, and we will hold a public workshop, and we will distribute the agreement prior to the workshop. So that's about all I had.
Okay.
Anything else, Ed?
All right, let's move on to item 7, GMB. You're making a presentation to this joint group, I believe.
Let the record show that Presley is leaving us right now. Everyone say goodbye, Press. Bye, Press.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. So we wanted to give a brief update on the joint projects that the city and the board are currently working on, as well as looking towards in a little bit of the future. First one being 4th Street and Park Avenue project.
Ben, please talking to them.
Okay, sorry, apologies. First one is the 4th Street and Park Avenue project. So far, well, I guess just kind of high level, you know, at this point, we are looking to replace water main, water services, hydrants, and valves, as well as replace rehab sewer mains, stormwater mains, laterals, inlets. And then on the city side, we're looking at a full reconstruction of both streets with options of select porous pavement based on infiltration testing results that, you know, need to be done. Additional improvements include ADA compliant sidewalks, ADA ramps, curbing, traffic calming, tree work, as we've kind of alluded to before.
We're also looking at some of those traffic calming, like you said, bump outs. This is all at the conceptual stage at this point. So one of the things that we really would like to do is to meet with some of the residents of the Bolton Avenue, 4th Street area, 102, sort of like the task force, to get some ideas of what would help in their mind of what the streetscape should be, especially for park. We know there has been some ideas that have been communicated, so we'll be looking at those also. Again, we're at the conceptual stage, so we just did get the full base map done. And we'll be sharing that with the Bike and Ped Committee for their next meeting to get any concerns that they have on the existing area. We have reviewed the Bike and Ped report. and master plan. And at least in that section of Fourth Street, there was no recommendations from the plan, but we want to get a good feel from them on what they think, since we're going to be redoing the whole street at that point.
So I believe Trina and I have agreed to meet with you. Wasn't that around October 8th? You would begin that looking at the development?
We'll actually should be able to do that sooner than that.
Okay, well, just let us know and we'll get some folks from the community together.
Great.
And just to highlight the magnitude of this project, both, we've broken it down versus city versus BPW costs, but in total, the project we're estimating is $8.5 million just for this amount of work. It's a large project, but it's a large amount of money as well.
The one thing I wanted to
That's
interject.
the joint cost, excuse me. I'm sorry, Tom,
Yes.
excuse me.
No, go ahead.
Was that the joint? cost?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
In round numbers.
Yes, I understand. Yes.
I think we've covered it, both in the city council meeting and in BPW's meeting, that we did look at undergrounding the electric utilities. And it was on the order of $40 million, just a real guesstimate. And it's due to constraints with the water and the sewer lines. The fact that there's many of those houses have very, very little areas to put transformers. And we didn't feel that even though the road's going to be open, it was worthwhile to spend $40 million on, when we could spend that money on undergrounding, hardening other areas of the cities that are more susceptible. So I just wanted to point out that's excluded from this.
Before you move on, when you describe this as you're in the conceptualize phase, is that correct? What is your projection for the time span that you'll be in the conceptualize phase?
So actually, we're just about finished the conceptual phase.
I see.
And that's actually going to be a slide in a minute. So we'll
It's
get that.
coming up?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
When you say conceptual, could that change? I mean, is it that conceptual that we're going to have to change it when the community meets with you? So my question is,
Mhm.
are we spending money that we shouldn't have spent? We should have been involved in this process earlier.
No, this is the time when in the conceptual, we do want to meet with everybody,
Right.
because that's early enough. Yeah, we've gotten all of the background information that actually meeting with the residents would be more appropriate at this time. So that the information is there on exactly what is all the base map, the underground constraints that we do have, and then all of the surveying base map. So our conceptual designs we don't, for the streetscape, we'll say, or for lack of a better term, sketches.
Okay.
There's not any of the hard engineering in those. It's ideas of what can happen and ideas. So that's the time when we want to meet with everybody.
And
Once you get
oh.
through preliminary, that's when you have all of your engineering. At least everything can happen, and any changes at that point become more expensive.
Okay.
And I'm just going to do a time clock here, because we're going to have to be rushing you more than we want to.
Okay.
So we leave adequate time for public comment. So that might mean a follow-up meeting, that you're on a workshop schedule with the city and maybe at a BPW board meeting as well. So if you can stay high, and if you all can limit your,
Refrain from
if
asking.
you could just hold for the questions, because there's a public out there that we're squeezing their time.
Yep.
Okay, and I apologize both to you, both of you gentlemen. We had a big agenda tonight.
No, you're fine. So in a high level, we are just about through the conceptual phase. As Andrew just alluded to, we did provide a more robust kind of status update. I won't hit all the highlights, but in general, we're pretty far on the utility design in terms of conceptually sizing things, making sure things work, what we need to look at. On the street side, Andrew just covered that. On the next slide, we did provide a high level Gantt chart that kind of shows where we are, where we expected to be and where we are. The percentages there show kind of where we are as of the middle of July when this printout was made. So progress has been made since that point. These percentages are higher than what they are shown on this sheet. So that's kind of our high level update on Fourth and Park.
When you update this in the future, can you have a, I'm just going to call it streetscape. You can use whatever term you want. I know it's embedded in your design and data, but for the public, they're going to care about what you're delivering, but it's, you know, it's 90%. It's once you solve the water and wastewater, it's above ground. And so they're going to want to know the streetscape process within your design or the time frame. Okay.
Yeah, we do have the streets in there for conceptual, trying to make it as high level as
I
possible.
appreciate
And we'll-
that.
Well,
Mhm.
in conceptual, we didn't break down the preliminary and the final design,
Oh, is
which
that?
is broke down the same way.
Your column of street means that.
that's all the
I
streetscape.
didn't see it
And
that
we
way.
can-
Okay.
We can make that more clear.
No, it's fine. No, I could read a little bit better too. Okay.
So our next project that is a joint project is Hornkill Avenue, which is water, sewer, and streets. Just as a reminder, this project includes an in-city portion piece as well as an out-of-city portion, which is because the street, because the street city limit line cuts the street in, I don't know, 2/3.
Yeah.
So part of the project is we're bringing in 11 new homes or 11 existing homes into the BPW service area, giving them water and sewer. Part of this project is replacement of the existing water main, CIPP lining of the existing sewer main, replacing a pump station, upgrading the street potentially with a porous option based on the infiltration testing. The magnitude of this project between the two city versus BPW is just about $3 million. Where we stand on this project, we have the design, fully underway, working on the pump station specifically through the resiliency approach with the board. The utility lines in the street have been laid out, and geotechnical work is very imminent for this project. And we have also provided a Gantt chart as well to give again a high level insight on the progress. So right now we're almost all the way through the preliminary design of this project. We're working on the final design. We have, again, this is as of the middle of July. Some of the things holding us back right now, geotech is slightly behind schedule. Our electrical design is slightly behind schedule, but anticipating, moving forward on that project as we can. And
Thanks for the Gantt charts, by the way.
hopefully, they're hopeful.
They're helpful.
The next joint project is Alaska Avenue improvements. And again, as a reminder, this is a paper street. And if you recall, an adjacent parcel is being developed, which required an entrance off Alaska Avenue. That required bringing the street up to standard. And as this project has developed, the city and the board have decided to extend that a little bit further to fully bring up the paper street to standard, not just the small section related to the development that is occurring. So that includes replacement of water main, CIPP lining of sewer main, full reconstruction of the road with porous pavement and drainage swale. The overall construction estimate is $438,000. We are currently meeting with the city and the board to discuss the cost share of what that looks like. So I can't break it down for you in terms of city would be this responsibility, board would be that responsibility, because that just hasn't been determined yet. Working with the developer.
With the developer,
Yep.
you can't share. Okay.
And I'll just note on this one, the permits have been acquired, everything's almost ready to go whenever we're ready to go with that.
Okay.
The Alaska Avenue, the permits,
Correct.
they're all in order?
Correct.
Okay.
So one of the other projects that we have is the Monroe Railroad Adams Avenue project. And this is a larger project we've been working on. BPW improvements include replacement of water main and service on Monroe Avenue, and then tying over the existing services on Railroad Avenue from the cast iron line to the newer 16-inch line that's existing now. And also replacement of the sewer main, new stormwater inlets. The BPW constructed estimated cost is $1.35 million. City improvements include a section of porous pavement in the parking area, new ADA ramps, ADA compliant sidewalk curbing. That construction estimate is 1.137 million. There was also originally FEMA funding for 587,000 that was not included in the construction cost to the city. That unfortunately, as of April, that funding was pulled, and I don't believe that is coming back. So right now, we're in the final stages of design, but still waiting on a little bit of information from the city on how we want to proceed with that. Now there was 600,000 in funding that has been lost on that one. The next one is actually the future project that we owe a proposal to the city on. And this is Marina Drive. So for BPW improvements, there is nothing in the capital improvements plan. There may be some light catch basin repair that we recommend, as we've gone out there and found we've actually got some cedar bushes growing out of 2 of the catch basins. So we've got to do a little bit of work to see exactly what those are, if there's any damage to those catch basins because of that. You actually can't see the catch basins from the street in that area because of those cedar bushes. So they've got to be cleared, and actually we've got to do a little bit of work to see on that. Otherwise, this is just a city project, which is anticipated for a 1.5-inch mill and overlay. If there are no other improvements needed, like because the catch basins are damaged, then it's probably a catch basin top replacement. We've been asked to look at that. If you have noticed the catch basins that are there, they are a different design. So there is swales, and right at the catch basins, there are concrete channels that are about 2 feet wide. And then there is a parkway top unit that sits about 2 feet, 18 inches above the top of the swale. What we would recommend be more appropriate is that parkway grate actually be at the base of the swale. So that top unit may be modified. Again, we'll look at that if there was any other improvements that are necessary.
Peter, Andrew, I have a question for you.
Yep.
Apologize. Are you taking in, are you going to, the community here is called Pilot Town Park.
Yep.
My question is, are you only looking at this section of Pilot Town Park, or
Yeah.
are you looking at the entire Pilot Town Park?
As of this time, according to the CIP, we're only looking at Marina Drive from Pilot Town Road to 4th Street.
But you're also looking at University, correct?
Not as part of this project.
Okay, I'll take that
Not
up.
at we've not been
Thank you.
given direction for that.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
so I have a question also, Andrew, and might be to the larger group. And that is, given that we are working on these particular projects, and we were just talking about prioritizing based upon health needs, are these up for grabs when we meet?
These are public safety. These are in our priority. So yes, everything is up for grabs when we sit down and talk.
Okay.
Okay?
Just wanted
Yeah.
to know.
Okay.
But just to be clear, the Marina Drive is mostly one of the maintenance projects for the city.
Right, which is its own budget item,
Okay.
pure maintenance. Mhm.
Okay,
Okay, and we'll invite them back. Okay?
yeah,
Because we're at
understand.
2:45. Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
thank you, gentlemen. I did on the last item, which is Army Reserve, I gave a detailed overview at the public workshop. So if you heard that public workshop, but I will summarize it in 3 minutes. The Army Reserve program is through our federal delegation And the only way we will accept this land is if we know that it is environmentally clean. That definition of what environmentally clean means is in process. So we have completed phase 1, and we are looking to go after a brownfields grant for phase 2. We are looking to have a citizen engagement, like a public information officer working with us. And then eventually we would go out for design and construction. So it's a big project. The only thing I want to share at this point is some citizens have said, well, why don't you just use it for affordable housing? The delegation that organized to get this to Lewes specifically in the arrangement said it needed to be for municipal campus. BPW is listed and the police. So the purpose of it was already set. Where we're spending our time now is making sure it is going to be environmentally clean and sharing that with the public once we get through the process. But if you listen to the workshop, I was verbose on this topic, and I'm happy to at a later point. All right, what I'd recommend is we get to public comment and that we all sit here a little bit longer so we can hear public comment.
Yep.
Fine? Fine with you
Yep,
guys?
and so the ground rules for the public comments are.
Ground
is
rules,
that
go ahead. Mhm.
This is the chance for the public to express their viewpoints. It's not a dialogue back and forth. After the public has expressed their comments, we will take them under advisement. We may have a discussion afterwards amongst ourselves, but
Yep, that's right. So when you come up to the podium, as always, say your name and your address, speak into the microphone, or you can come to the table, and you are on a 3-minute clock, and I will rudely hold you to the 3 minutes, being respectful of everyone else. It looks like Ms. Tripp is first. All right.
All right, we're gonna run the clock.
And Blue has your clock, but you can say your name and address before the clock starts.
Okay, my name is Carrie Tripp, 400 Park Avenue, Lewes. We heard today we didn't have the money to replace Burton's water pipes. It was said the cost of all the CIP is about 48 million, but that's apples to oranges. Maybe you want to take notes on this. We asked how much non-PVC versus PVC pipe there is in the water lines in Lewes. We didn't know. We do know. GMB gave us a report in 2024. It tells us that there are 148,000 plus non-PVC pipes versus 169,000 PVC pipes. I can break that down for you in square footage, and I can break that down for you in mileage because it was in the report. So that means that there are 2,744 miles in non-PVC versus 3.2 miles in PVC pipe. If we take the cost of just replacing the water lines, which is all our community wants, according to the most recent grant submitted by BPW, it's about $1,280 times the amount of pipe we have. We're not talking about $1 million even, from what I can tell. So back to my original comments. Well, we appreciate BPW's statement that they make their decisions based on science. We urge them to think about the impact on our residents as a stronger criterion. In prior hearings, some of you dismissed that criterion, but I want to remind you that research has proven that by anthropologists, sociologists, that they enrich every subject, including the subject of medicine, that when we look at people's lived experiences, whether it's patients or otherwise, it helps to empower disempowered, marginalized communities and groups and tackles injustices these individuals have faced. In that light, I read a statement from a native Lewesan. It declares, and I will put the original copy on the record, "My name is Mark Gooch. Many of you know me as Froggy. I was born in Lewes and lived on 311 Chestnut Street until I left to serve in the Vietnam War. When I returned, I was the second African-American person hired by the city in 1979. I was assigned to the city's water and sewer department. At that time, the Lewes Board of Public Works just did electricity. My project was to help the city tear up all the streets on the town side, to inspect and replace the old metal water pipes, and to install water meters. I was surprised to learn this week that Park Avenue's water pipes were not plastic and had not been replaced at that time, when so many other streets had their metal pipes replaced with plastic, state-of-the-art. Maybe it was because all 18 homes on Park Avenue were owned by Black people, and the area of Ship Carpenter had my aunt and no other homes, just swamp. But given all the development on Park Avenue and in Ship Carpenter Square since then, certainly these pipes are obsolete and long in need of replacement. signed Mark Gooch. I have the original. Froggy was surprised to hear that we still had our 100-year-old pipes in
Your
Bert.
3 minutes is up, but you can submit that comment so we can read it online. Just give it to on the right. It's fine. Come forward. Brenda, I think you have someone right before you.
My name is Elaine Zimmerman. I live in 418 West 4th Street. It's not clear to me whether you consider that part of Burton subdivision. I would say we are not a subdivision. We are nothing, none of our houses have anything to do with each other. We are not a subdivision. We are one of the oldest and most deprived communities, neighborhoods in the city of Lewes. And I think we do deserve more, and we have more individual differences, as the lawyer said, and we deserve priority. I'm talking about Burton subdivision. When we first bought the house in 1988, BPW replaced our entire water pipe from the house to the road. We didn't ask for it. We drove in, and it had been a big old burrowed piece of land. And it was because our piping was connected to our neighbor's house, and evidently we were paying for their water. The mayor suggested that the homeowners be individually involved and come to your meetings. That is a wonderful idea. I also think it should be more than just as a group. I think it would be nice if somebody would look at my house. It's a 1790 historic house. And it's an individual house. It's not on the lot correctly. It's totally different, as are every other house in our neighborhood. I know one person in front of me now who built his house in our neighborhood. We are not a subdivision, and we are really needing of a priority in this. Not only that, we were a forgotten community for years and years and years. We had dirt roads. We had ponding whenever it rained. We had no sidewalk. We were just forgotten, and it was because of race. We all know that. Right now, let's make this a priority, and the whole neighborhood. I do want to say that we wonder, are you going to pay for this sidewalk repair due to the trees that have been, we didn't ask for those trees. All those roots came up and they ruined our sidewalks. Do we pay for that? Do we pay for them to be removed? Let us know, please. Surveys, don't put them just online. Not everybody in our community goes online. This city website is not easy to maneuver. I don't think that the average person can figure out how to fill out an online thing. Certainly, we have a wonderful neighborhood of very bright people, but there are other people that just don't have a voice. When you say there's no problem in our water quality, guess what? That's what testing shows. Talk to the people in back of me. Talk to the person I'm sitting next to me who's replacing for the second time his water system because everything's black within the last 2 weeks. And also take Amy up on her offer to write this grant because she is a professional. She has loads and loads and loads of experience. It has to be joint. I, as you know, wrote the grants for the Overfalls Lightship. She knows what she's doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for hanging. I know it's been a long time. Please stay and make comment.
Hi, I'm Brenda Afsel. I live at 418 Park Avenue, and I will probably be less than 3 minutes. My filter when it goes in, my filter when it goes out. We have never said that this issue is about health. And I hear you looking for objective data about health data. This is about iron. As everybody in BPW knows, iron is not a health regulatory issue. This is, except for 2 people in our community that have hemochromatosis, and they know they have, thank you, know that they have it, and they're taking action so that they're not drinking the water. But for the rest of us, it's about dirty water. I don't want to put my little granddaughter in this dirty water if there are little private parts in this dirty water. So we had a $5,000, sorry, I've just left iron all over this table, $5,000 plus replacing filters on a regular basis cost. I know of at least 6 people in our community have done that, and many more who are doing
bottled water, when we all know that that is not an answer to this problem. Two things that I wanted to make sure I said, Sharon has let me know that there is, and I have seen a splash page on BPW's website about our issue. Hallelujah. I think it's a wonderful thing for you to put it there. I think it would be really helpful if that was a place community members could go and just have a response and say, I am having trouble with this. I've had to replace this. Because when I ask people at our task force meetings, what is your record on community response? They say, we don't have a record on a lot of community calls, mainly because people have given up calling you. And like me, I've been calling every day. I mean, this is an everyday long-term problem. Gosh, there was so much I wanted to say. The SRF, we didn't apply for SRF last year. No one applied for that. When we applied for the last one, and I have a copy of the loan the loan grant that was applied for, there was no health component in that one, other than there was some comment about lead. But in general, there was no health component. So we do not need a health component to apply for the SRF. It's inexcusable that we don't apply for this every single year. When I asked about, I think it's wonderful that the city uses that CIP index. When I asked BPW what they use to determine replacement, and I was told they use the expertise of the engineers and their board. I said, well, how about comments from community? It is not considered. We need to have subjective data as well as objective data. And I'm going to stop there so everyone else could talk. This was another person's water that they brought today, but they had to leave.
Thank you
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Come forward, please. That wasn't blown at us, was it? Just teasing.
My name is Don Ernakovich, 422 West 4th Street. We moved into a new home in 1998. Excited retirees looking forward to living in beautiful Lewes. We have a jacuzzi bathtub, and I took my first bath with brown bubbles. This has been going on now for 27 years. I cannot tell you the number of times we've appealed for help from Board of Public Works. We had several responses. Number one, it's on your side of the curb, it's your problem. Number two, the line from your main line to our house is cast iron. It's not, it's PVC. And the most ridiculous response, with all due respect, is that you must have a hole in your water line. If one has a hole in a pressurized water line, the water would come out. Dirt would not go in. We have gone through our second filtration system recently installed. And the woman before me showed you what our filters look like after a very short time. We had to pay to have every lateral line in our crawl space replaced because of the buildup of sediment. Listening to the presentation, I know I will not be around when the problem is solved. But I leave you with one simple question. Why do we have to pay full rate for water that we cannot drink or use? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next. Yes.
Good afternoon. Julie Spetz, 417 DuPont Avenue in Lewes. Over concerns of the water quality, we had our water tested last year, professionally done. It revealed that we had lead, copper, sulfates, nitrates in our water. As a result of that, we got a water filtration system to be able to drink the water. And I would like to include the testing results as part of the public record. Our octogenarian friend and neighbor, George Cole, has a personal story to tell about how this water crisis has affected him. George has a doctor's appointment this afternoon and unfortunately cannot be here to tell his story, so he asked me to read it for the public. My name is George Cole. I'm a resident of the Burton subdivision in Lewes. Being unable to attend this meeting, I've asked a neighbor to present my thoughts. Very sorry I cannot be here to answer questions. It is commendable that the city of Lewes and the BPW are jointly working to resolve an issue that presents something of a hidden health problem. When there is too much iron in the human body, the iron is labeled as a poison. In various tests, the Veterans Administration found that I have a genetic health condition known as hemochromatosis. Other DNA tests have confirmed the finding of the VA. Essentially, my body retains too much energy, which has an adverse effect on various organs, in particular the tissues of the heart, the liver, the kidneys, and the pancreas. Thus, I have to monitor both the food I eat and the water that I drink. A person cannot be cured of hemochromatosis. They can only be treated for it. For those who live in Burton subdivision of Lewes, the best treatment is iron-free water delivery pipes. People should not have to pay for iron-contaminated water to be delivered to their homes, in addition to paying for filters to remove contaminants from the water. Looking forward to seeing the water pipes replaced in Burton subdivision. And I hope the council and the BPW agree with us that access to clean water is a universal human right.
Other comments? Yes, come forward, please. And if anybody is online, we will get to you as well. Blue, is there anyone online? There are a good amount. Okay, we'll get to them when we finish with folks here.
I'll be brief. I'm Pat Farina, 418 Johnson. Just one comment. The flushing that's done monthly, that can't be normal, right? And I know I can't ask questions, but I assume that's not normal. So what would happen if the flushing wasn't done? I assume that it would just be built up worse and worse and worse over time. So we've already admitted that there's an issue. There's a serious issue, as you can see some of the samples. So the other thing is, I have a bunch of comments, but a lot of them have already been addressed. The other thing is, the streets in Burton need to be repaved. I mean, all the streets have been dug up with all the pipe issues and everything that we've had. They all need to be repaved. So while we're in the process of doing that, wouldn't it make a lot more sense to do the infrastructure under the streets instead of repave the streets? Because I know if we repave the streets, the pipes will never get done. So this is kind of, we just need to do this for a bunch of different reasons. The other thing, I want to make sure that this is in a plan. This is definitely in a plan, a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, a 2-year plan, whatever it is. Because after going through all this, if this doesn't happen now, it's going to be 15, 20 years out before anything probably happens. And we're really at risk, a lot more health risks if we wait that long. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, please come forward.
Hi, I'm Tracy Toscano. I'm at 407 Burton Avenue. I'm a full-time resident. I've been living on Burton Avenue for just about 7 years. And last year we put in a reverse osmosis system for our drinking water because we are not able to drink it. And I have a really tough time with the idea of even though it's bad water, wasting water by running something for 10 to 15 minutes to clear it. That's not how I was raised. And I don't want to do that. That doesn't feel right. So I'm just here with my community and my neighbors to voice our thoughts on making this a priority. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Taylor Cameron, 512 DuPont.
We are relatively new residents on DuPont Avenue. We built our home and moved in last August, so we've been here just a year. In that time, our bathtub's ruined. Our dogs won't drink the water. We won't drink the water. We had to install a filtration system, and we live right next to that flusher that runs at 6 a.m., 12 noon, 6 p.m., and 12 midnight for 15 minutes at 500 gallons a minute. It's almost 1 million gallons a month. You're emptying the water tower 3 times a month to solve this problem. You dug a graveyard at the bottom of a cliff instead of putting a guardrail at the top of it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience that would like to come forward? Let me go to those online. And if you are online and would like to make a comment, just raise your virtual hand so Blue will unmute you. Yes, Marty Thompson, I see. Let's start.
Hi,
with-
this is Marty. Can you hear me?
We can
Yes,
hear
we-
you. Hold just a second. We'll get your clock ready. Yes, go ahead, Marty.
Okay, and I apologize. I'm Marty Thompson. I'm at 3 Flamingo Court in Lewes. I'm also the tree commissioner on the Parks and Rec Commission. I apologize if you went over this before. I tuned in late, but as to the 4th Street and Park Avenue projects, as you know, there's trees involved on 4th Street, and there's also used to be trees along Park Avenue. It's a very hot spot, and I would like to be able to put trees back there. But when you talked about having bike ped and citizens on the committee, I would like to have somebody dealing with the trees, not only where they are placed for aesthetic reasons and shade reasons, but also to make sure that the planting holes are good planting holes suitable for trees. Hopefully not right under the wires if that can be arranged, but I don't know if that can be arranged. But, you know, with good soil and drainage and stuff in the holes so that the trees can do well. Same thing with the Railroad Avenue and Monroe Avenue project. There actually is some planting space there along Road Avenue, but we don't have trees there because this project is coming up, and it would be great if we would end up with places to put trees in that area. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online? Raise your hand. Last call for online. Anybody else in the room that would like to make a comment? Yes, come forward.
My legal name is Betty Kratt, and I live at 410 West 4th Street. And I would just like to say that I'm not going to repeat what my neighbors have said. I just agree with them, and so does my husband. And we've been here for 20 years. And in 20 years, and we came before that, when we talk about needs, one of the gentlemen already said something about the roads. Those roads haven't been touched in all the time we've lived here.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to no other. Oh, have you already made a comment? If you've already made a comment, you could submit online. You can't keep coming back according to the rules. But that doesn't mean that we won't accept your written comment. So please send that in. You get one bite at the apple in public comment period, unfortunately. Okay. All right. And you don't ask questions in a public comment because we are listening. Okay. That doesn't mean, I'm taking very detailed notes. I know my colleagues are too, but it's not a back and forth. That's what a workshop is, which is why we're going to have workshops. Okay. So comments, let me start with BPW. Any comments that you would like to leave all of us with?
The first one, in general response, is that, you've said this many times before, we're paying for the sins of the past. Should we ever have gotten to this point? No. But we're not alone. Bridges are falling down. The infrastructure of the country is really in deplorable shape. And now we're trying to make up for it. And you've got, 30, $40 million capital budget plans to try to bring everything up to where it should be. This is not the way I was trained as an engineer to be reactive. It's about being proactive. But once again, with $200 million worth of capital projects, it can't be done in 10 years. And I hear what everyone is saying. I would not want the dirty water in my house, although I get it sometimes. But, I'm not sure, we're trying to balance both sides here. On that, anything else from the BPW side?
No. And Robin, anything from US? No, okay, from the city side?
I would just like to close by saying that, a lot of times we think of things as not possible. I think we all have to have the attitude that we can do this. We can do this. It's just a matter of making it happen. We can make this happen. We've got to believe it. And I think we will make this happen. We've just got to make the plans and come to these meetings. And I think this communication is wonderful that we're having right now. It's hard sometimes to have these kinds of conversations, but that's how you start developing a plan that can make things happen. So I really think today was very valuable. And whoever thought of these meetings and these joint meetings, kudos from me.
That's Councilman Ritzer first thought of this idea. Maybe
Well,
someone else on BPW too.
This was a result of the dispute we had years ago.
Oh, so it came out of that.
So, I think Presley was president at the time,
I'll
the
give
Presley
President
chair. Yeah.
comments, Trina.
And Ted was
And Ted
mayor.
as mayor.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate the comments of everyone who came forward and those who may not have, but still have feelings about the water that they're drinking and bathing in from the Burton subdivision area as a resident of that same area who's been here all of my life. So I appreciate the comments that you have made. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you all for coming and making your views known once again. Thank you.
Andrew. Let me close with a few comments. I love to write grants. All right. I'm your crazy mayor who likes to write grants. And I like to write grants based on stories because I believe regulators will always get data everywhere, but it's when we can make them feel what it's like that we win. So I will personally commit to work with BPW and my colleagues in the city that we will be applying for an SRF grant. What I would ask of the public listening to these very important and impactful stories is keep good records, because when we start the grant process, I will come out for stories. So keep these stories that I'm hearing and have heard in the past, because they add to the flavor of a grant application. I'd also say that there has been deferred maintenance related to, I'm just saying the city side, which our council has rectified with a $1.7 million budget for FY26 to start working on the roads. However, I want to share the comment that as much as we need to do mill and overlay, if we are going to dig up a road, then it's just a waste of taxpayer dollars to do mill and overlay. So we have to do that coordinated. That's why you see these bodies together. But it could be that some neighborhoods wouldn't be ready for road, really a lot of activity with BPW for years. Well, then you do mill and overlay because it's a Band-Aid until you get there. So I've built roads. I'm not an engineer, but I've built roads, I've built water, and even a small package treatment plant. I'm very well aware of this issue. I don't know, as Tom said, I don't know what happened here in the past, but it's not going to continue. So you have my word, and I think you heard it from all of us. We're going to solve this problem. So thank you for coming out. Thank you for being patient. We are changing our agenda next time. There'll be public comment at the beginning and public at the end. Thank you for being patient to understand the process as well, and for all of the time you put in. And thanks to all our colleagues.
Thank you.
Okay, so I need a motion to end the workshop.
I'll move that we
Motion
end.
to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Second from our side. Terrific.
We're
Adjourned.